Okay, this is the Business 436 cap table quiz. I don't know if this is the one you did in class or if this is the practice one, but anyway, we'll go over this. It says Venture Syndicate Investors offers to make a Series A, so first round A, B, C, right? Round one, two, three, A, B, C. Investment of $4 million for 20% of the company of which you are the founder. What is the implied pre-money valuation? And they mean of the whole company. Well, obviously, if they're going to invest $4 million for 20% of the company, you can either multiply 4 million times 5, because this is 1/5, right? Or you can divide the 4 million by 0.2, because remember 4 million is to 0.2 as something is to 1 or 100%, right? And so in this case, either way, you get the answer of $20 million. Okay? It says before, keyword, they put the 4 million into your company, they want you as the founder to set aside 15% of your shares for an option pool. So this is before any money is put in. So there's no pre-money valuation, post-money valuation, anything like that, because no shares are in yet. So there's no shares purchased. So they say they will invest the money at the price of $1 per share. So if they're putting 4 million in, they're going to have 4 million shares, right? What percent of the company do you own after you do this, and then VSI invest $4 million for their 20%. So don't get confused. You're not going to own 85% at the end of the investment. You will initially own 85%, but that'll get changed once VSI invests their money. So the first thing we need to do is to go in and they want pre-investment ownership. So pre-investment, since you're setting aside 15% for the options, you will have pre-investment ownership of 85%, which means before a portion of the company is sold, you own 85%. The options guys own 15%, or there's a pool for options of 15%. So now it wants to know if they put in, that VSI is going to put in $4 million at $1 a share. So how many shares are they going to put in? Are they going to have? They're going to have 4 million shares. You put in the information that you know, okay, and what percent ownership are they going to have? Well, they told you up top that they're going to have a 20% ownership, right? So and they tell you right here. So you know that they're going to have a 20% ownership. Okay, so, and then we figured out before, if there's a 20% ownership at $4 million, this is 4 million shares, but the whole thing's going to be worth $20 million, right? 20% ownership, 4 million shares, worth $4 million. Also, we can put that over here. This is all information you've been told. You know that the total worth is going to be $20 million. Okay? So now you know that these guys own not 85 and 15%, but as a total, they own 80%. So there's a couple ways you could figure it out. You can do 80% of 85%, 80% of 15%, and that'll give you the percentage of ownership, right? So let's try it that way. Because remember, these two now add up to, well, we can back off this too. I mean, we can do it another way, but let's just do it this way. These two add up to $16 million also, because this is $4 million and this is $20 million. But let's just figure it this way. Whoops, sorry about that, I hit the thing. Let's turn this thing on, 0.85, and we're going to have 80% of that times 0.8 is 68% ownership. And remember, that's because originally these two added up to 100%. They still add up to 100%, but they're only 80% of the total now. So if this 100% is down to 80%, then each one of these is down to 80% of what they were before. Okay, and so you can either do 80% of 15, which is 12%, or you can just know that this is 100%, subtract 88%, and you get 12%. Either way. Okay, and so you can do the number of shares the same way. You know that it's $1 per share they told you, so you know there's going to be 20 million shares. Okay, so 20 million shares, and now these guys are going to own 12% of 20 million shares, so you can just 0.12 times 20 million, which is 2.4 million shares, and this is 68% of 20 million shares, right? And so that's 13,600. And the worth of their shares, it was $1 a share, right? So that's 13,600,000. I might have said the wrong number there. And this is 2,400,000. And you can see that all these add up. So remember, once they gave you that this was 20%, and we knew that it was a $20 million valuation from up above, and we knew that this was going to be $1 a share, so 4 million. So you could figure out either way you wanted to. The best way was with the shares, and you knew that these represented 20%, so these two together had to represent 80%, and you knew what their percentages were before to add up to 100%, but now they add up to 8. Their total 100% is now 80%, so each one of these will be 80% of what they were. Okay? So now we go to the next page, and they ask you to take these numbers off of here and put it on the next table, and they ask you a few questions. So we've already transferred the numbers over here, and they come up with some more information. It says now copying the appropriate cells, and make sure you answer all these questions too. I didn't on this last page, as a matter of fact. Make sure you don't just fill out the tables, answer the questions. It says, what percent of the company do you own after you do this, and then VSI invests their $4 million? And so you own, the main guy, the founder, 68%. So really important, remember to fill out the answers to these things. Don't leave these blank. Go back, when you do the tables, make sure that you filled in all the answers. Okay, so here's the third question. Again, these just came off of the first table. This is the Series A, so I just had these things already copied over here. It says now copying the appropriate cells from Series A cap table, which we did, show what it would look like after a Series B investment, such as investor Boston Ventures, amount invested $9 million, percent of the company they own is 15%. Okay, so it says they're going to invest $9 million and get 15%. So what is the post-money valuation? Well, you can just do that right now. You don't even have to go through and do it on the table, but it should match what it ends up on the table. And that would be $9 million divided by 0.15, right? Because you want to get 100%. 9 million is to 15% as something is to 100%, and that is $60 million. Right? 900 divided by 15%, because 9 million divided by 15% is 60 million over 100%, right? It says complete the cap table, and remember it wants to know the share price, which won't show up on the table, but we have to calculate that afterwards. Okay, so what have they told us? So put the new information in, and then fill in whatever information that you know, and then we'll figure everything else out. So we know that they're putting $9 million in, so what's the worth of their shares? $9 million, right? And what did we also figure out up above? Well, we figured out that the post-money valuation is $60 million, right? So we know that's 100%. So that's $60 million. And what's one other piece of information they gave us up here? They're buying 15% of the company. Okay, so their percent ownership is 15%. You know the total is going to be, their ownership's 15%. You know ownership is going to be 100% at the end. Okay, so now what else can we figure out? Well, we know that these shares didn't change. Their percent ownership will go down, but their shares haven't changed. So let me turn this thing off real quick. Okay, so just put those shares in. Okay, 13,600,000, 2,400,000, 4 million. Okay, so now what can we figure out? Well, if he bought 15%, you know that all three of these add up to what percentage? 18%, right? And what are those total? Well, you know that these total 20 million shares. These 20 million shares represent 85% now of the shares because he's got 15%. So how do you figure out what the 100% is? So you know these number of shares, 20 million, these ones right here, because these add up to this 20 million, is 85% of the shares that are going to be outstanding, right? So make sure to clear the calculator and put 20 million divided by 0.85. So you know that the total shares are going to be 23,529,041. Okay? You know these add up to 20 million, right? So you know this, if you just subtract these from this, you know now that this represents 3,529,000 shares, or excuse me, 3,529.41 shares. Okay? So now you can figure out, now that you know this number, you could figure out what percent of ownership each one of these is. You take the 13,600,000, I did this wrong, 529,000, it was 529,411, or 412 actually. Sorry, my mistake, because this is 20 million, so this is 23 million. It's not 0.41. My mistake. 412. So 23,529,412. So the difference is 3,529,412. And you can figure out, you can take the 13,600,000 divided by this 23 million. You come out with 57.8% ownership. You take this 2,400,000 divided by the total number of shares. You come out with 10.2% ownership. And you take this 4 million divided by that 23 million, and you come out with 17% ownership. So the worth of the shares, okay? So you could take this 60 million times that percent ownership, so 60 times 57.8, and you get that this is 34,680,000, because they don't give you a share price yet, right? But can you calculate the share price? Sure, they don't have a place for it right here. But all you got to do is take the 60 million value, divide it by the number of shares, and that'll give you the share price. And actually, that's one of the answers up here. 60 million divided by the 23,529,000 is actually $2.55 per share. So remember, you're going to want to fill that out. And the other part is complete the cap table. So the 60 million times the 10.2% is 6,120,000, and the 60 million times 17% is 10,200,000. So make sure that I've answered all the questions. This one got answered, this one is done, and this one is answered. Everything's filled in. They had no ownership, remember, under Series A. They came in at Series B. All right, so that's the, I guess, the ones that you did in class. I'll go through and show you how to do some Excel stuff, because he's basically going to want you to be able to do the calculations with Excel, and we'll go over that on a different video.